Hi, I'm David Malpass. I'm Distinguished Fellow of International Finance at the Daniels School of Business at Purdue University. Growth is really important for people, especially those that are trying to get ahead, that are trying to advance. In 2023, growth had slowed, and the unfortunate news is it looks to slow further in 2024. The World Bank just put out its forecasts, which look for only 2.4% growth for world GDP in 2024. That's not enough to support the advancement of people in terms of their education, in terms of climate adaptation, in terms of the infrastructure that they need to build. In order to have investment, you need both good projects and then the financing for those projects. Both of those are struggling right now. As we look at the projects that are identified around the world, they're always in competition with the advanced economies. It makes it hard for countries that are trying to develop to really find projects that will be profitable. The advanced economies are building lots of factories. You see it in industry after industry. And then on the finance side, it's also very hard for countries because interest rates have gone up by so much, and also there's simply not enough availability of capital. Two parts of that we should focus on. One is the advanced economies their governments are spending so much money, it doesn't leave very much for the rest of the world, for small businesses, for developing countries. And then the central banks themselves are buying a select group of bonds, the bonds of advanced economy governments. So that puts a bias in the system toward concentration of capital. So it's making it very hard for development. For the United States, it has this superior borrowing power, and so it makes it hard to find checks and balances. What's the limit on how much you can borrow? But if you do all that borrowing, you have to pay interest on it, and also you have to recognize that it's the government that is going to allocate that capital. So it's not very good for growth to have so much of the capital, so much of the money being allocated by the government. For many countries in the world, it's a much more difficult problem. They can't get people to lend to them because they're having to compete with the US government, the Japanese government, and other of the advanced economies. So that's creating a very hard situation. They entered the COVID with a lot of debt. They added more debt during COVID, and now they've gotten hit with the higher interest rates. And so that's a triple whammy. Too much debt added to during COVID with high interest rates. And so many of them are defaulting. And one of the things I've talked about in this in today and in my paper is the big challenge of resolving country situations where the debt is unsustainable. So what do you do when a country gets too much debt and the interest rates are too high? There needs to be a process for them to restructure the debt and get a lower interest rate and a longer term payout payment schedule for that interest rate. And there's no process on the international scene to actually accomplish that. As we talk about developing country, the excess debt, there needs to be really consideration at the international level of how to make faster progress. It hurts the people of those countries to have to wait and wait and wait and go through a big international bureaucracy with their lawyers to try to straighten out the debt. So I think there should be more focused effort by world leaders on what to do about the debt, recognition that China is now the biggest creditor. So what's a workable process for China to resolve and allow the restructuring of their debt? One of the things I've advocated is that the world ask the IMF and the World Bank to take a more active role in actually reducing the debt. That hasn't been their mission at this point. They simply add more money and more debt onto the existing debt. And so there needs to be a rethinking of that process to get to a better outcome for the people in developing countries.